Hey guys, Andy N spoken label back in the house. It's a lovely March afternoon at the moment as well. Been lovely today. Popped out this morning with Amanda and we had a great little walk about that. So podcasting time now, and we're speaking to wonderful ladies today. And she met this young lady over at Speakeasy back last year, if my memory's correct. And she's originally from the Edinburgh area, but now is relocated as of recording, right near Oxford Road train station. So if you hear any trains today, you know why. We've got the wonderful Hannah Ledlie with me today. Now, Hannah, well, I've known you, what, about 6 months now, was it? Or was it maybe a bit more or not even? It's about right, isn't
Probably
it?
around 6 months, yeah.
Yeah, I know you came down to Speakeasy and it's just, you blew me away with your words you did first time I met you. And I've had some, and I've not told you this yet, but we've had some pretty good poets actually who've really praised you as well. So I'll tell you about that
Okay.
later as well. So, but we'll come on to that later. So, but anyway, so back to you, of course, now. As I said before, you're originally from the Edinburgh area. So tell us about yourself, where all your creativity came from originally. And then we can touch base a bit more modern then, I think.
Yeah, so I'm from Edinburgh, I was born there. Sadly, I don't sound very Scottish because my mum's English and my dad's actually Northern Irish, but his accent is
Oh,
faded as well.
oh wow.
Yeah.
No, I've heard
Uh,
it. I think you sometimes it's your accent. Sometimes I've heard when I met you about 6, 7 times now. It's like your accent sometimes flare blows up, and I've heard the Irish come through as well. So
mhm. Yeah, I think it depends how much alcohol I've had. So probably at the
yeah.
start of Speakeasy, I sound quite English, and then after a few glasses of wine, it comes back out. But yeah, as for my creativity, I guess if we go right back to the start, when I was just first learning to write as like a 4 or 5 year old, you know how in school you get given those books where it's like a blank space where you can draw a picture and then you caption it below. And that was just my absolute favorite part of school. And my teachers would encourage me and my classmates would love reading the little illustrated stories that I wrote. And I think when you're a kid, if somebody praises you for something, you just immediately zone in on that and keep doing it over and over again because at least I was the sort of kid who just wanted everyone to tell me I was doing a good job. So I got into writing short stories that way. Like eventually my little illustrated stories turned into writing flash fiction. Somebody pointed me towards this flash fiction competition called 247 Tales. I think it was run by the Book Trust, the Scottish Book Trust. And yeah, as the name suggests, you would write a 247 word story or less. And there was a different theme each month. And so having a regular monthly deadline really got me writing regularly. And then I sort of stuck within the world of short story writing all through high school. And then it was only when I got to university, I went to the University of Birmingham to do English and creative writing. That's when I discovered the whole world of spoken word.
Wow.
So yeah, I can get into that if you like.
Yeah, definitely that. So, I've got a couple of angles I could choose from next, but we'll stick to the past history first of all, because I know back in 2015, and I'll tell you before we start, everybody, Hannah's a great example of having a really great website here because it lets me be lazy on research. But back to you, obviously, 2015. I know you were shortlisted, weren't you, for the BBC Young Writers Award? So tell us
Yeah.
about that first.
Yeah, that was a great experience. I really wasn't expecting to get shortlisted at all. Somebody had told me like, oh, you should enter this because you love writing short stories and the deadline's coming up. But I just couldn't think of an idea. And I spent weeks trying to think of something to write about. And in the end, I think those books that are like 102 writing prompts. And there's this prompt that was something about like your character is falling from, sorry, my battery notification came up. Your character is falling from a building and their phone rings. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. That's quite a cool concept. So I just wrote, over the course of like one evening, I think I was up quite late, a story, about this character who's just jumped off a building and their phone rings. And looking back, I'm not particularly happy with the story. I think it ends on a cliffhanger purely because I couldn't think of a good ending. So I was very surprised when I got shortlisted, but it meant I got to go to London and visit like the BBC studios. I think Alice Levine, the radio host, was one of the judges. I got to briefly meet her, and Mark Haddon was one of the judges. Lots of like cool writers that I got to be in the vicinity of. So, and to be honest, the fact that I look back on that story and just see problems with it, it's probably a good sign, because it shows that I've got better since I was a 17-year-old. Yeah,
I think so. I'm always believing in that. As a writer, you've always got to be progressing forward anyway. And if you could spot the problems with certain pieces when you, should we say, less than mature days, I agree with you, complete sign with that. Great stuff. Now, okay, there's a few of the pieces I'm going to touch on as well. Now, this is typical. My laptop's just froze me now as well. But I know you were a winner, weren't you, back on the Penguins platform spoken word competition 2019 as well. So go on to that next one. We'll cover ground.
Yeah, I think that was a spoken word competition specifically for like queer poets. So that's sort of right up my street. And I had written a poem at the time about the experience of going to my first Pride festival, Pride parade protest. And to be honest, I had felt like a bit of a rabbit in the headlights, because I had spent my whole youth, my whole high school years being quite closeted, really. And so when I came out just the summer after high school, and then I found a nice group of like mostly queer friends during my undergrad. But even then, I was still not fully like comfortable in my own skin, I think. So suddenly going into this environment where everyone was out and proud, and there was literally a sort of an audience as we walked through the city. On each side of the railings, people were like clapping and cheering, and I was like, whoa, this is quite intense. So I wrote a 3-minute spoken word piece about that experience, and I think I'd already performed it at Unislam, this national student competition. But I thought, I should use this for this competition. So I recorded myself just on my laptop screen, and luckily I was chosen as one of the winners. There were multiple people invited, but I was one of them. So that was nice.
Well done. I think it was just after this point you were a member of Second City Poets, weren't you, as well? Who's got a collection out obviously on Verve Poetry Press. So tell us about then where this came from then. And are they still active as well, Second City?
Sort of. So Second City Poets sort of grew out of the University of Birmingham poetry team. So it was the sort of founding members, I guess, were myself, Sean Coletti, and Anne Gill. We were members of this team that competed at Unislam, a national student competition. And Hannah Swingler was with us as well, Kieran Hayes. I competed at Unislam in 3 different years. And each year the team was sort of slightly different, like 1 or 2 members would swap out. But I would say, me, Sean and Anne were heavily involved. And off the back of our success at Unislam, the Verve Poetry Festival sort of reached out to us and asked if we would want to do a full-length spoken word show for the Verve Poetry Festival. So we realised it would be difficult to perform under the name of like the University of Birmingham Slam team. It just we had sort of moved on from that, so we wanted a separate identity that wasn't linked to the university. So that's why we came up with Second City Poets. And the reason behind the name was that, well, Birmingham is, I guess it's actually contentious whether Birmingham or Manchester is the second biggest city, but some people say that Birmingham.
We'll say Manchester because you're living there and I've lived there all my life, so we'll say Manchester.
Well, we ignored that, and we said that Birmingham's the second biggest city, and also it was the second city for each of us. Like Anne had moved from Cambridge, Sean had come over from California, I'd moved over from Edinburgh, so Birmingham was like our second city. So that's where the name came from. And then once we had that sort of name, once we'd got ourselves organised, we were invited to do little readings around the Midlands. And after doing our Verve show, we decided to take it to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival as well.
Well, I said, well, I suppose with you coming from Edinburgh originally, it kind of made sense to go and do the Edinburgh Fringe, didn't it? So, did it feel weird for you? Yeah, did it feel weird for you doing Edinburgh Fringe Festival even when you weren't living in Edinburgh at that stage?
It wasn't. In a way, the fact that I lived there made it a lot easier because I didn't have to splash out on crazy accommodation costs. I could just stay with my parents, and some part of the collective stayed with us too. But definitely something about the Fringe is just a very strange world. It's very full on because it's not just the you don't just turn up and do your show. You've got to do a whole period of marketing it and going to see other people's shows in the hope that they'll see yours, trying to get reviewers involved, wondering whether or not people are actually going to come, worrying about having a whole empty row of chairs. So it was tiring, but we had a great time. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, now moving right on. Also as well then, I noticed obviously before we come on to why you moved to Manchester, we'll do that. I know one of the recurring themes that's come up in your work, I've noticed it from seeing you read it as well, is futurism as well. So where did your interest in futurism come from?
That's a good question. I suppose it's sort of probably in my interest has bubbled up in the past sort of 5-6 years. I read a book, I've forgotten the writer now, but it's called To Be a Machine, and it's about the sort of transhumanism movement, people who are trying to augment their bodies by getting various chips and implanted into them.
Is it Mark O'Connell?
Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's him.
Not read it. I've just googled him. I've cheated.
Yeah. It's a fascinating book. And there are plenty of people who believe that they're going to live forever, or that they could live to 1,000 due to exponential advances in medicine and technology. Personally, I think that's extremely unlikely, but I find that whole world quite fascinating. And I think I'm, in general, a sort of techno optimist. I think that technology does have the potential to massively increase our lifespans and to increase just our everyday well-being. But I'm also very cynical about capitalism. So I think while the technology could do great things, I don't exactly trust the people who own it and who make money out of it to use it responsibly and to distribute the gains equitably. So I'm quite interested.
That's really subtly put that. Sorry.
Yeah. So I'm kind of interested in that tension, like the amazing potential of humanity, and also the whole like Black Mirror dystopian aspect of things as well. I like to explore both aspects. I don't want to be all doom and gloom. But it is difficult to write utopian poetry or fiction. I find it's harder, I think, to come up with a positive vision of the future than to just criticize the negative.
Yeah, no, it's
potential.
true. It's true. You look at the side of the coin where you don't come across many people who can do it as comedy versions of it either. So yeah, it's really, really tricky one. No, that's fair play. That's why I love it when you're working it, because it does crop up a lot, and I've seen it as a recurring theme for when we chatted today. Because Amanda, my wife, she has the same boat as you. I've seen her write so many critical pieces of using technology, and sometimes it's funny, but often it's just downright bleak, right, in a cynical way. No, I agree with you. So now, obviously, like I said before, I know you've been up in Manchester now for just over a year now, haven't you, as well? So how have you found moving to? Is this your third city, is it, or is it your fourth? Because I think you were in Oxford at one point, weren't you, as well?
Yeah. So yeah, I'm from Edinburgh. I did my undergrad in Birmingham, and then I did my master's in Oxford, and then I moved here. So yeah, 4 cities. I've been all over.
No, fair play to yourself. Fair play to you that one. So, do you want to mention about what your day job is at the moment to people, or
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've got the scoop. Actually, I'm handing in my notice tomorrow. So by the time this podcast goes out, I will probably be just finishing up at my current job. So I'm a copywriter for an audio branding agency. So at the moment, I write basically hold messages for businesses. So when you call up a business and get put on hold, you get to hear adverts that I've written.
Oh dear! Oh wow!
They either sort of inform callers about the business, or and just encourage them to stay on the line, or they will like mention some sale that is on at the moment. And I've learned a lot through this job, and there are loads of like really fun, creative people on my team. So it's good. It's a very unusual workplace, I think, being able to work alongside like 30 other creative young people. But yeah, the writing is quite repetitive, and I feel like I'm not making much of an impact on the world at all. I want to be able to do some good with my words. So the new job that I'm going into is marketing and communications for a charity here in Manchester. So I'm hoping I'll be able to do a bit more good in that role.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed, you're definitely with it. Now, I have to ask you, obviously, you're going to be creative in the new job as well. But, and this is a question I always ask Amanda this, because I know you know already, like, well, people may know that Amanda makes a living off being a copywriter. Like I said, it's like, how does it feel or compare being creative in your professional life and in your personal life?
It's a good question. I think so. In my professional life, everything has quite a tight deadline. At least in my current job, I get a pile of work at the start of the day that needs to be done by the end of that day. So it's actually been quite helpful in teaching me to shut down my inner editor and my inner perfectionist, because I just have to get the work done. But for the same reason, I also find like I'm less proud of my work in a professional environment, because I can't spend weeks or months polishing things up. So and I think it's the element of time is quite important here, because when I'm writing a poem, I will spend a long time mulling it over, editing and re-editing, and you generally can't do that as much in the workplace.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that one, because I have to do a lot of bits and pieces, not less on my day job as well. So yeah, you're right. I think your brain switches off in different directions, doesn't it, as well? So and do you find as well, obviously, like with you jumping around between flash fiction, stories, and poetry, I do all three, and I live in the novels as well, like it. But it's when you're writing one thing, it's never the case, is it? You know what you want to write. So I've had it when I'm starting a piece off, and I'm thinking, "God, if it was a poem, this," and it's not, is it? So you're never quite sure, and it's like you're doing it professionally as well. It's like I'd have trouble flicking from one switch to all the others, basically. I can't get confused.
Yeah, I'm okay with sort of multitasking or switching from one genre to the other, but I do find after doing, 8.5, my shift at the moment are 8.5 hours, so that's a long time to be sitting behind a screen carefully thinking about the best way to write an advert or something. And at the end of a work day, often the last thing I want to do is then go sit at a notebook or sit behind my screen and write a poem or work on a story. So it is a shame when your professional life sort of seems to get in the way of your creative life a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's understandable. Now, I've got to
Mm.
ask you back onto the creative things because I noticed you won a competition last year as well, and didn't you? And I'm just true to form. I've just gone and lost it where it was. There we are. Got it. It's typical me. They say, yeah, I found it. You won, didn't you? The winner of the English Language Category Award, or the, and I've got to stumble on this, the
It's
EACWP Flash Fiction Competition last year. So tell us about that then.
yeah, that's I'm going to get it wrong now. The European Association of Creative Writing Programs. Yeah, there we go. They run, I think it's an annual flash fiction competition, and it's open. There's a whole bunch of different categories for different languages, and yeah, I was lucky enough to win the English language category of it. And I can't, there was a theme now. I've forgotten the theme of the competition. But I ended up writing a short piece based on my experience of job applications, actually.
Oh,
because yeah, I don't know if you've encountered these, but so many jobs, they get you to do a situational judgment test where it will say you're in a situation where, I don't know, there's a fire in the shop, what do you do? And I struggle with these because I really overthink them, and I want as much context as I need more context to be able to answer correctly. So I wrote a sort of funny piece about that, but I ended it on a slightly like serious note. I quite like doing that. I quite like writing something funny, but then having a little serious twist at the end to leave people thinking.
yeah, no, I can't blame you there. Great stuff. I tend to do the other way around, usually end up where doing the serious piece and then the sunny tend to put in a throwaway comment at the end and have people thinking, oh, for God's sake, Andrew, don't do that again. Yeah, I know what you mean with it. So now, obviously, we need to probably, before we start asking what plans you got for the future, I know it's only fair, we should be mentioning, obviously, about your editing services that are on your website at the moment, which I presume you're still going at the moment with. So tell us a little bit about that so people know about what you do as well.
Yeah. Well, I have in the past, I've taken on a few editing clients who, yeah, they'll send me a poem or a short story that they're working on, and I can either just proofread it for errors, spelling, grammar, things like that, or I can give more in-depth, like macro edits on the structure, the use of language, things like that. But actually, I should probably update my website because I've had to put that on pause since I'm moving flats and moving jobs. It's all quite chaotic at the moment. So I'm taking a break from the editing and just gonna wait until life calms down a bit more before I pick that back up.
Oh yeah, completely. Now, obviously, if you said people have caught it already, like you're in the process of moving, you're moving like home and job. So it's hard. I hate having to ask this question to wrap up on really. Part one is, do you have any sort of creative plans for the future when things calm down?
Well, I've been saying this for about 5 years, but I do really want to submit a pamphlet to a publisher. I've got probably enough material to fill 2 poetry pamphlets or 1 full collection, and I've just been hoarding my poems like a dragon, sort of too scared, or I guess not scared. I'm too much it's that perfectionism getting in the way again. I'm proud of the poems individually, but I haven't figured out how to order them or group them together in a way that I'm happy with. So I've actually I've booked myself a little holiday at the end of this month, and I'm thinking I'm going to use that time to really get a collection together. So hopefully that's on the horizon for the next, year or two.
Good. Well, keep us informed. Okay. When you're done, love to have you on here again. And I certainly want a copy of that as well, because I do love your work. So,
Oh,
right,
thank
obviously,
you.
hard sell time now. Then, okay. Oh, should we call it hard sell or soft sell? Okay. If people want to find out more about you, for example, your editing services, when you can do them again, where do you recommend they go?
Yeah, so my website is hannahledlie.com, and my Instagram, which I don't use that often, but you can follow it if you like. It's at Hannah Ledlie.
Perfect. Keep you informed, Hannah. Okie dokie then. The end of part 1. We will be
Great.
back, everybody, in 2 shakes of the dice. So I'm just going to sort out now how many pieces Hannah's going to do for us now, because true to spoken label form, we've not sorted this out yet. So see you in 2 minutes.